Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and we have one hell of a show for you today. Not only are we're going to be talking about a newly produced article by Windows Central talking about the change in direction when it comes to marketing and messaging, and it starts with GDC. That's this week, folks. That's right. GDC is going on right now. Lots of our favorite podcasters and some of my really good friends, like, Danny Benya and Paris Lilly, and of course, some of the Iron Lords are there. John, I believe, is there also from, I was going to call him Xbox era, but it's now day one. You know what? I never thought that it was an event that I should attend until seeing something that Danny Pena put out there about attending and, rubbing elbows with different people and different, of course, people that make games. And I think I'm going to try and get out there next year. Something I want to try and do, try something new, see if that helps the channel and its growth. But hey, Jamie Moran, what's going on, brother? As we await, Umbra to get in here, how are you feeling?
Hey man, I'm good. Yeah, I'm in a good mood. Got some stuff to talk about. Just finished Final Fantasy VII Remake after
Nice.
expecting it to come to Xbox for a very long time. I'll talk about that another time. But I'm in a very good mood. Very good mood. And look, we're going to be talking about Xbox console stuff specifically. Yeah, let's just talk about it.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of really big topics to get into. Again, for anyone that wants to know what's on the screen, this is called Yet Another Zombie Survivor. It's very unusual in the way that that you play the game, because obviously it's a roguelite. You die, you have to start over. But what's super interesting is the way that you get teammates. You get up to two additional characters, making a total of three. And I got to be honest with you, it's one of my favorite roguelites of last year. It's not expensive. It's still in preview. But the game is I mean, if you like, these top-down survival-like type of games, roguelites, you're gonna love this, especially if you're a zombie fan. This you'll see some of the powers that you get later on are just absolutely insane. So check again. You'll see it as we roll through today's show. But Jamie, again, we are awaiting Infinite Umbra to join us, and I do want to get his hot take on this. But I want to highlight a tweet that you put out that I think is really worthy of talking about. Last week, I think it was Thursday. Yes, I'm almost positive that it was Thursday. Asha Sharma, who is now the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, dropped a nuke on the gaming industry by naming the next Xbox console. I want to make sure that I say that out loud, because what we're going to get into is how there are many stands, there are many trolls, and there are many gaming media sites that absolutely 1000% refuse to call this hybrid a console. Now, some of the conversation that we've seen, Jamie, is, people are going to lose bets and arguments about, and again, we don't really do the names thing here, folks, because we try to pitch positivity. But when there's stuff to talk about, we got to talk about it. And quite frankly, there are several content creators, there are several media moguls, if you will, that are on the socials that don't want to lose the argument that they said, Jamie, that Xbox was done making consoles. And the head of the whole thing dropped a bomb on Thursday confirming Project Helix. And in its namesake, what it means is a merging of DNA. And what does that DNA look like? That would be the Xbox traditional hardware console with what people play on today called PCs. And they're going to merge them. And it's going to be a box underneath your TV that plugs in the same way your Series X or S does right now today. except it's going to give you everything that you love or you don't love about PC. The open-endedness, the ability to have a curated list of all of your games from every store in one place to play. Yes, that includes PlayStation games that are on PC until supposedly Sony delists those games so no one can buy them. But I'm not going to read your tweet. I'm going to let you read your tweet. And this is what got everyone talking, at least me talking, but I saw a lot of people responding to it. And you put out this tweet. I don't even know when it was. It says March 9th, 2026. So that was yesterday. And I sent it so you can find it easily. Let's open up with how the industry is trying to beat back the idea that an Xbox is confirmed console is not a console.
Yeah, it's a funny one. So I'll quickly read off my tweet because it was just a throwaway tweet because seeing big industry people talk about this stuff and just deny that it's a console just made me tilt my head sideways like a confused puppy dog. Like, why are they doing this? So anyway, I wrote the core user base of Xbox are console players, not cloud, not Windows Store, and not mobile. They're making a console for their core demographic. Certain people are pushing the it's a PC because of optics. They don't want Xbox in the console game. It will be a console. Now, I brought that up because it's funny. People, by the way, the past 2 days, I've seen people bring up that, but why are people so adamant about like going against it being like called a PC? I think people should be asking the opposite question. Why are people so adamant to call it a PC? Right? And the reason why is because the core group of people that buy a console are console gamers, right? Like you could have people from Microsoft or whatever say that, hey, it's going to play PC games or whatever. That's just a feature, right? The fact is, they have to make something that is aimed at their core demographic. They aren't going to build a mega PC tower with neon lights sticking out the wazoo, right? They have to make something that's aimed at their core demographic. So you have these people online calling it a PC because what's going to put a console player off more than anything? A PC, right? Console gamers don't want PCs, otherwise they'd be in the PC ecosystem already. So like that's why they're pushing this. You have Jeff Keighley come out and make his post about the Project Helix, and rather than just he could have copied and pasted the official Xbox post verbatim, right? But he didn't. He called it PC hardware device, right? Like, PC based hardware device, right? Why, right? And then he was getting this back and forth on Twitter with Tom Warren from The Verge about why it should be a console. What does a console mean? Excuse me, there's a police car going past. But like it was like trying to quantify what a console was and asking like, what is a console? And to me, I was just shaking my head like this is a person that's trying to be the face of the industry, right? E3 gets put down the toilet because the pandemic happened, and minutes later he swoops in to say, "Hey, I've got my own Summer Games Fest. Watch it here, blah, 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 blah. Get your tickets here," right? And then you have Gamescom, which is a German game show, right? Game Expo. And he has Jeff Keighley's Gamescom opening night live, featuring Jeff Keighley, starring Jeff Keighley, right? And then you have the Game Awards, which is his, but you have him that is clearly wanting to be the face of the industry, and he doesn't know what a console is. And he sees that Xbox is like every time Xbox has done something new, he's gone against it in some way. He's acted, what's the term, nonchalant about it, right? And I'll bring this up because no one else has. If you go back to 2019, where the Game Awards is happening, if you look at that Xbox Series X announcement, out of nowhere, he didn't know anything about it, right? Look at his reaction afterwards. He just doesn't seem fazed at all. He's like, "Oh, that's the new Xbox," right? Fast forward literally 5 minutes in the Game Awards, there he is showing off the trailer for Godfall, and at the end of the trailer it says PlayStation 5. Not even the official font for PlayStation 5, just PlayStation 5. And he looked so giddy. He looked like someone on Christmas just got a new Transformers toy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's clear to see, like, look, it's okay having a preference. Everyone has a preference. But like when you're trying to be the face of the industry and you have a heavy one-sided look on things, The PlayStation 5 Pro gets announced, and he has 14 posts in a row about the PlayStation 5 Pro. When
Yep.
the Switch 2 got announced, didn't have that many, right? He had one post about Project Scorpio, and he called it the
He got it
wrong
wrong.
device. Yeah, he
Yeah.
got it wrong. And then he got noted, clearly had the note removed, got noted again, had the note removed, and then got noted a third time, right? And it just annoys me. Like, you have some, and I think the Game Awards has came a long way. But when you have these high profile people in the gaming space and they're doing this stuff, it's irresponsible, and it's tacky. It's cringe, right? Look, I get it. Microsoft hasn't been the best with messaging. They never have been good with messaging. But like, to sit here and say that, hey, and I've seen a lot of content creators do this, and you've mentioned it, Boom. Like, a lot of people keep referring to it as a PC. They keep talking about this device like they already know what the price is. The truth is, nobody knows what the price is. No one, right? And to think that, like, these companies don't price these pieces of hardware 2 years out. They just don't, right? Especially in an ever-changing market, they just don't. So you have that going on as well. And it's just like this weird compounding issue where all that Microsoft did was they changed leadership, right? They had to show something to the fans, right? Because look, over the past couple of years, every time Xbox has had some bad news, there's been this massive overreaction on Twitter, and Microsoft has to respond. That's why we've been talking about next generation Xboxes for 2 years, right? We shouldn't have been talking about the Xbox next generation in 2024. We shouldn't have, but we had to, because Microsoft had to reassure people. They had to come out several times saying, hey, we're making hardware. We're making hardware. Because you had crybabies on Twitter acting like the console ecosystem and, Xbox is going to shut down, right? Same thing happened in 2025. People don't think I'm wrong. They had their summer showcase, and literally a week later, they had to have Sarah Bond put out a video on YouTube saying, by the way, we are making a next generation console, even though they had said it 50 times at that point, right? So, like, it's annoying because, like, one, I think the Xbox Series X is great. I'm sure their next generation console will be great, but the fact that we've been talking about it for 2 years highlights a problem that messaging has always been bad because people like to overreact on social media, and Microsoft is very what's the term? Reactive, right? They're very reactive to blowback on social media. But then when you have people like Jeff Keighley doing this, it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. And I've seen people say, but why do I care so much? Like, look, I one of the reasons why I bring up the 7th gen a lot, sorry if I'm rambling, but one of the reasons I
Nope.
bring up the 7th gen so much is that all three consoles were selling like 100 million units.
Yeah.
Everyone was having a good time, and the conversation wasn't about who was last. The conversation was who can get into first, right? There was a time where the 360 was number one in NPD in the US for 37 months in a row.
Yeah, it's correct. So people forget about that. I mean, granted, it has been a while since they've held those kind of numbers, but it did happen.
Yeah, it did happen, but it's been a while. But my point is that back then it wasn't PlayStation's last or Xbox's last or Nintendo's last. It was like all three companies were trying to be number one. So that's why you had PlayStation that came out as the overpriced Blu-ray player with no games. But do you know what they did? They listened to feedback, they got their head in the game, and they came out with a generation filled with interesting, really cool exclusives. The Nintendo Wii was literally in every person's home around the world, right? Everyone's grandmother and their cat had a Wii, right? And then you had the Xbox 360, which was the place to play games, right? But all three console hardware manufacturers were doing great, right? So I'm annoyed right now the way I am is because, like, I want that to happen again, right? We all benefited so well when that was happening because they were all trying to fight for the number one spot, not trying to see who can, like, Microsoft. The fact that a $1 trillion organization, corporation like Microsoft, has to constantly come out and reassure their fan base that, by the way, we are making a new console is ridiculous. And then you have people like Jeff Keighley making the situation worse, calling it a PC at a time where they really need to make sure and get across that it's going to be a console. Console. Over the past 2 years, Microsoft's referred to this device as a console, right? And it's been referred to as a console again. And by the way, I'm going to call these people out, not by name, but I'm going to do it indirectly. All these people that put $1,200 and $1,800 in their thumbnails and like doing the shocked face,
Yeah.
and saying that they have seen the Xbox project Helix and it's ugly. These are people's waste of time, waste of product. And that's saying was it flies are attracted to crap? That's what that is,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much exactly. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I hate clickbait. I hate that. I hate that whole nonsense thing, and it's just weird. But yeah, Jeff Keighley didn't help the situation. And look, we're gonna see it next time when the console's revealed. And it's one of the reasons why I don't want Microsoft to announce their next console or reveal it at the Game Awards the way they did. Because one, that's like $500,000 straight in Jeff Keighley's pocket, and two, well, that's a topic for another day. But I think that everything that happened this past week really highlights a big problem where you have these big content creators, these big industry people, where they refuse to call Xbox a console. They refuse to just say that the obvious things about Xbox. Look, we can say all day that Microsoft messaging is all over the place, always has been. But you can say right now, their game output at the minute, damn good. Damn
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
And
there's no arguing that, Jamie. I think you're onto something. I put it this way, just to add some context, and I'm going to hand you right back to Mike. When you can say in a singular year, right? And again, folks, you've heard me say this before, but there are a lot of new faces here, which is awesome. So welcome everybody. But what Jamie is referring to is an output of first party games that I challenge anyone in this chat and whoever will listen on the replay to go find a platform, any platform, any publisher, any developer, and try and find a singular year where you're getting a Halo, Gears, Forza, Fable, Call of Duty. Now, that's just 5. Now, if you want to add, we can also add a smaller game. Kiln is also, that's 6 games, right? There's been a lot of tweeting from from other developers that may or may not have something in the pipeline for this year. I don't know where you'd actually put it, right? But you're getting the big 4 in 1 year. Technically the big 5 because they own Call of Duty. Now, I understand last year's Call of Duty wasn't as good as Black Ops 6, but Modern Warfare 4 is expected to bring it back to where we all know and love about Call of Duty. So if they hit on all of those games, they're also in the process of releasing new hardware. And maybe not this year. Like, we're not going to get the official Xbox Microsoft developed Project Helix. I'm still, on the walking the edge of madness whether or not we get an OEM this year, and maybe that will be revealed on Wednesday at GDC. Again, we have to just certainly wait for tomorrow. But Jamie, I think you're onto something, and I do think that there has not been a publisher or developer to do what Microsoft is doing this year, and somehow as many games as they will be releasing, and we're talking AAA bangers, it gets left out of the conversation. It's almost like people put their head in the sand and tell you that they see everything that's going on. It's crazy.
yeah, like I've seen people in chat mention it, like the content creators' names that do the clickbait. I'm not saying names, but people know who I'm talking about. Maybe these people in
Mm-hmm.
chat are right. But look, I think it's interesting that we have new hardware coming out. Let's call it next year, the year after, whatever, in the next couple of years. I think it's interesting we have new hardware coming out at a time where the industry is in a weird place with the whole AI stuff, right? You have components that are costing way too much, and look, that is one of the reasons why people are very wary about the next generation price. However, if anyone dare acts that they know the price of a piece of hardware 2 years away, they are out of their minds. They're out of their minds. Companies don't work like that, right? Like, you know how everything leaks? Nobody leaks that Apple was putting out a $500 MacBook, right? Nobody did, right? Did Apple know the price of this MacBook 2 years ago? I'm guessing no, right? And my point is that back to the whole content creator thing and industry people thing, like, Yeah, like just over the next week, I want everyone listening, just pay attention to people in your feed, these industry people. Look
Yeah.
at how they refer to next gen Xboxes, right? When they refer to it as a PC or PC device, right? They'll always bring up the price, PC, PC, PC. It's all an optics thing, right? They want console gamers to look at these posts and be how should I put it? Uh dissatisfied with Microsoft's move. I put it like this. My best friend that I play Call of Duty with, play Arc Raiders with, been my best friend most of my life, right? This might shock people, Boom. My best friend is a PlayStation guy.
Holy cow! Look out.
Yeah. Who would have thought that that I could be friends, basically lifelong friends, with a guy that prefers PlayStation? He has a PC, he has a ROG, he has an Xbox, he has a Switch 2, he has a Switch 1, but he prefers PlayStation. And even he's noticed it, right? Who barely does social media, right? This PlayStation guy. He's like, it is a bit weird how everyone's calling it a PC and how everyone knows the price all of a sudden, right? It's an optics thing. And just for giggles, I looked online and I had this memory pop up, like back when the Scorpio was announced, and Microsoft said their next generation, their mid-gen refresh, the Scorpio was going to be 6 teraflops. I remember people saying it's going to be a PC. Right? Same thing happened with the One X, right? When it was Project Scarlet, people were saying it's going to be a PC. People have this like obsession with trying to just downplay Xbox in any manner whatsoever. In a time when they're putting them out like a lot of good games, right? So they're taking every shot they can to make Xbox look bad. And don't get me wrong, Microsoft they do mess up all the time, right? They do step on rakes, but this time they're actually getting the messaging right. Just clear out, say it's a console. That's all they've done, right? And that's good. But like every single time Microsoft has new hardware coming, people need to call it a PC. It's because of optics. Sorry about the long rant.
No, no. Listen, this is a conversational
it.
podcast. I thought what you had to say was absolutely brilliant and more effectively the truth. Again, the whole, I don't want to continue to beat the horse, so to speak. So I'll make a quick mention of it. We know you said something about the back and forth that went on between Tom Warren and Jeff Keighley. I saw it. I couldn't believe it, to be honest with you, because I don't understand what Jeff was trying to win. It's a console. It's been called a console. Yes, it is going to be PC like, but that's why it's a hybrid. That's why they tag named it Project Helix. It is a combination of DNA that makes this thing. So ultimately, yes, is it going to have the ability to have a curated library of games from Steam, Good Old Games, and Epic Game Store, as well as play every one of your Xbox games ever? Yes, it's going to do that. Is it going to look like a console when you take it out of the box? Yes. Is it going to plug into your TV that you have and go right where your Series X was? It absolutely is. Is it going to have a controller, a wireless controller, no less? Yes, it is. It's going to do all those things. Is it going to have a dashboard that acts and looks like what you have right now in your Series X? Yeah, that check there too. So what is this? It's a freaking console, man. And I don't understand. Again, I do understand. I understand why the rhetoric. I understand why the consistent back and forth. But I just find, and I'm not going to tell people what to watch. I'm never going to say, hey, don't watch this guy because he's a real a-hole. No, I'm not about that life. Watch who you want to watch. But when you start seeing creators or members of games media try to sell you on this thing as being something that it's not because they're going to lose an argument or a bet that they made, that's ultimately why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they want to tell you the truth. They're doing it because they want to be disingenuous and they want to go against the grain. And you know what? At this point, it doesn't matter what anyone says. It's a console and it is coming out next year. And who the heck knows? We could actually see what this console looks like this year at GDC. Now, I know there's the likelihood of that is slim to none, let's just say, but something did pop across my feed that I thought was incredibly interesting. Now, this is a bit of a little additive to what we're talking about regarding the console thing. So, um, shout out to Tom Warren who reposted something that John Clark from Day One, formerly known as Xbox Era, if you don't know who Day One is, posted. Now, John's original tweet, which I have in front of me, right? He's taking video of the Xbox area, right? Now, he goes on to say this Xbox 25 years display is locked off until Wednesday, but all of the consoles are on display here from the original design of the actual Silver X, the actual Xbox, to the Series X and S. Now, this is what's interesting. Yes, it's the 25th anniversary, so this setup makes total sense. Now, this is where we're going to kind of walk through speculation town, which you know that I'm a co-mayor of, right? Now, obviously, they put this out there. And when I make this into a smaller video, I'm actually gonna add it to the video, which you've noticed I've added some additional production things to my videos. They're taking a little bit longer, but I am adding tweets and I'm quotes and articles and all kinds of stuff. I'm actually having fun doing it, so I'm gonna continue to do that, and I will do this with this particular post from John. But Jamie, here's my ridiculous speculation. And again, this is on the edge of walking the razor's edge of madness, if you will. They have this incredible Xbox 25th anniversary setup, and it says empowering developers and all that great stuff. It has all of the consoles on display in the years that they released, and some of the biggest games that launched on those consoles. Would it be crazy to say that because this is the 25th anniversary, because this is Asha Sharma's first GDC, who, by the way, strategically announced last Thursday that the new console would be called Project Helix. Again, this is crazy, folks. I would say if I was a betting kind of a guy, less than 1% chance of happening. But what if they did show off the console? What if at this, event that they have been pushing, they're hosting, by the way, show off the new console and put it on display right along from Xbox One in 2001 to what's coming out next year? I want to get your thoughts on that. Again, is it likely? No, but man, would that be a story?
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen. Like, all we're gonna hear over the next week is dev tool stuff. And look, last year they put out, I think there was some video that came out about like development tools and stuff about the Xbox Series X. Look, it's way too far out. They probably don't even have a finalized design. Like, I watched a video recently of the Xbox 360 being designed, and like they had two different companies competing against each other for the final design. And one of the original versions of the 360 looked like a spaceship. It looked like a UFO. That actually looked pretty cool though. But and one of them actually looked like those styrofoam takeout boxes you can get. They get like a burger in sometimes.
Yeah.
One of them looked like that.
Oh wow. That probably wouldn't have went over pretty well with the community.
It didn't look too good. But I think that, look, I don't think we're going to see it for a long time. I think Microsoft may have learned the hard way because, like, when they announced the Series X in 2019, Xbox One consoles plummeted in sales, right? Nobody was buying them because you're just saving for the next generation. So, like, I think Microsoft's best bet isn't actually to mention the next gen console at all. Like, they'll do the dev thing, talk about, the APIs and all that stuff, and do not announce the next gen console till June next year. I know that might sound a bit outlandish because we talk about next gen consoles right now, and they seem to talk about them really early. But like, if you like, I think the traditional way of revealing a console just works. You announce it 6 months before the release, and then that's how it happened. Like, look at Nintendo. Nintendo announced the Switch 2, I think it was like 4 months before it came out. and that worked really well for them. Actually, I think it was like 3 months or 2 months. But that worked out really well for them. I think that, look, GDC, we're going to hear some interesting stuff. And by the way, I want to talk about this quickly because we'll probably hear it over the next week. Every single generation, people look forward to, the new gen for power, right? Better graphics, all that stuff. With the Xbox 360 generation, right? What we were promised, the HD generation,
Yep.
games for 720p, sometimes 1080p, rarely, but it was the HD generation. With the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, that was the 1080p 60 generation. Funny enough, most games weren't even 1080p 60 on either console. And that's why we had mid-gen refreshes as 4K boxes. And then you have the Series X and the PlayStation 5, which were dubbed 120 FPS consoles, 4K, and also can do ray tracing, right? Although, because Microsoft had the power advantage, everyone, including the media, decided to change the optics of the situation to loading times. By the way, looking back at that was a bit stupid, right? Everyone was hyping up a new generation of consoles for load times, really. But anyway, so like, what is the hook for next generation, right? We've already got 120 frames. Most people don't have TVs that support higher than that. We've got 4K. TV manufacturers are actually pulling away from making 8K TVs. I think 8K TVs are pointless at the minute. So, like, what is the hook? And I genuinely think the hook might be also just 120 frames per second, 4K, but maybe path tracing. I think path tracing might be the big thing next generation. But I think you're going to have amount of enemies on screen, better AI because we have advanced AI now. So like, I think we're going to hear a bunch of that stuff because I think that I like this. People mention mention how I brought up the loading times thing. It's like, no. By the way, I'm sorry, this is a bit of a tangent. Does no one else find it a bit weird how we were all excited for new pieces of hardware, and we see the Xbox Series X. We say, hey, it's going to do 120 frames per second. Cool. It's going to do 4K. Cool. It's going to do ray tracing. Cool. PlayStation. It's going to do ray tracing. Cool. 120 FPS. Cool. And also 4K. Cool, right? But because the Xbox is more powerful, people all of a sudden start saying, but it's about loading times. And I see in chat saying, do you like sitting at a load screen for 30 seconds instead of 10? That's a big problem I have with the internet. People make up their own little version of what they've just heard. It's like selective hearing, but worse, right? I think loading times this generation has dramatically decreased to the point where I think it's really nice the fact that I can open up a save in Final Fantasy VII Remake and it is basically instant. I think that's cool. But the fact that everyone was hyping up a new generation of hardware for loading times is the most mind-boggling. Like, I'm face palming right now.
No, I think it's just to win an argument at any cost.
Yeah,
and if it comes down to Jamie that if the narrative that they're pushing is being lost in the actual information that's available, they will hook on to anything that wins in that argument, and that ultimately that's just pathetic.
Yeah, every generation there's going to be one console that is going to be more powerful. That is just the fact of life, right? The PS3 was technically more powerful than the 360, but the 360 had more RAM, right? So that was a big point there. The PlayStation 4 was more powerful than the Xbox One. And then the Xbox One X was more powerful than the PlayStation 4 Pro, right? Every generation there's going to be one console more powerful than the other. It doesn't matter if it's by a little bit or a lot. It's going to be more powerful. But the fact that everyone just all of a sudden like, oh yeah, like go back to any GameSpot, IGN interview, any of that stuff, right? They were just talking about loading times. And I was sitting there thinking like, isn't it kind of sad how we have a new generation upon us? We're all stuck in the house and here we are talking about loading times and not what these consoles are truly capable of, right? It's so annoying because like these consoles, including the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, the S, they're capable of really cool things. And the fact that all people could bring up was loading times was kind of sad because they were diminishing their own hardware, saying, hey, this 120 FPS, this ray trace and this 4K stuff, let's forget all about that. let's talk about loading times, right? My God, I just wanted to bring that up. But look, GDC, we're going to hear about tech stuff. And look, there's development stuff that we're probably going to hear over the next week that's going to benefit everyone, right? With the whole RAM situation, I'll bring up Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. It came out that was going to have to require 32 gigabytes of RAM on PC. And then because of the RAM situation, do you know what they did? It requires 16 gigabytes of RAM now, right? So that's because they're optimizing these games, right? I think we're going to hear about optimization tools because, look, when Unreal Engine 5 came out, optimization wasn't the best thing, right? That's clearly getting better now, but it's going to be a bunch of nerdy talk. But at the end of the day, I think what we're going to hear over the next week is going to be just beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we're going to segue into what we expect at GDC because I do have an article here from WindowsCentral.com, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, great way to start off the show. I'm glad that we did bring it up that, yes, we did have to reiterate it's a console. We all know that, and we have over 450 people watching here, and there are several that are trying to insinuate, even after all the information that's put out there, that it's not a console. Look, I think you're ice skating uphill, and you're not going to win any of those arguments. It's a console. It's been called a console. It will be a console, but it will be a console that's different than anything before it. And I still think, with all of that said, it's still going to be a console. But look, awesome. Let me catch up on super chats here and gifted subs, and then we will get into the Windows Central article and give our predictions of what Xbox is going to be showing tomorrow. And of course, we're going to be covering the results of what they show tomorrow on Primetime Gaming, which is happening later in the afternoon, more 7 p.m. our time, Eastern Standard Time. And then we're going to really break it down on. Again, I don't know anything, folks. I have not talked to anybody. But based on the excitement of, seeing people there and what I think could potentially be there, we're going to have a lot to talk about for the remainder of the week and maybe going into the next coming weeks, because I think Xbox is going to show up and show out for a lot of reasons. And we're going to break down those reasons, and hopefully we have a lot to talk about after tomorrow when they do their unveiling of whatever they're going to show and break down exactly what we're getting in Project Helix in 2027. But let me catch up on super chats here. So we got one $2 super chat from Sith Lord, our good brother. Great, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and of course the generosity. He says, a great week for Xbox Umbra to rise from the grave. Yeah, I mean, listen, Umbra's not here as of yet because, well, he works midnights, folks. So he probably fell asleep and stayed asleep, and that's fine because maybe he'll join us on Friday morning's Breakfast with Boom. We will certainly see. It's me, the broke boy, drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, Boom, did you see that pic I sent you in your message? Yeah, that actually made me laugh out loud because it was true. It was a PlayStation guy yelling at an Xbox guy because he was having fun on his console. You see a lot of that, man. I mean, I've had people come into. I've been on a bit of a blocking spree. I try to promote positivity, folks. I'm here to have fun, play games, and trying to get a million gamer score this year. I'm doing good so far. I have nearly 41,000 gamer score for the month so far. Today's the 10th. So I'm going to see, my goal was 50K per month until the end, so I would hit the 1 million, but I don't want to have to be, have the pressure of the holidays in December. So I'm going to try and try to do 80 to 100 per month. It's difficult, folks. It's not easy. And so far I got nearly 41K. I should be able to get to at least 80 by the end of the month, but we'll see. We have a gifted sub here from Nino Vestic, who has gifted one double barrel gaming membership. So, of course, if you did get that gaming membership from Nino Vestic, our generous friend all the way from Hawaii, please thank this man. Brother, that's very kind of you, as you've done so many times. Mrs. Boom and I do greatly appreciate the generosity. We also have another super chat here from It's Me, the Broke Boy, drops a very generous $5 super chat. It says, remember, during the APK hearings, I think Xbox had a slideshow where they showed new controller mock-up. They also showed a cylinder console, the Helix. Yeah, I don't know if the cylinder console was the Helix. I mean, I've used that particular cylinder multiple times in many of the videos that I've done. I don't know if that was going to be. I mean, again, it was a prototype. That's a good thought. I didn't even consider that could have been the Helix all the way back then. But I have a feeling that it's going to be very streamlined. I think I wouldn't mind it just being just a box, that kind of is more futuristic looking than the Xbox One. It doesn't have to be a cylinder. It doesn't have to be a giant X. It doesn't have to be, an actual Helix that lights up. It doesn't. It just needs to be what they're promising it's going to be, and I'm okay with whatever it looks like as long as it fits. Please don't make a PlayStation 5 or Pro because those are ugly. They're just ugly designed consoles, and it's not console related. Even Mrs. Boone was like, "You're not really gonna have that thing standing next to the TV." I'm like, "No, I tucked it away." So that's where it is right now. But Jamie, let's get into this article. Now, this article that I have in front of me, again, posted by WindowsCentral.com, published yesterday by Adam Hales, and it's titled "Move Over." Quote, "This is an Xbox. Build for what's next tells fans the future of Xbox starts now at GDC." So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the article. We're going to get into breaking down what we expect and our expectations for tomorrow's event. I have quite a few, to be honest with you. So Adam goes on to say in his article, "New signage at Xbox's GDC booth highlights build for what's next, and the future of Xbox starts now." Now, those particular terms, ladies and gentlemen, are incredibly important. They are key to the future of what Xbox is going to do. Build for what's next, which is their next box, Project Helix, and the future of Xbox starts now. And I think the messaging and marketing is a part of this conversation. We're going to break all of that down because I think when you see something as bold as the future of Xbox starts now, that's, again, it's pretty interesting considering that Xbox has had 25 years before it. And they understand, and I really think like that whole town hall meeting that we talked about in my last video and then we talked about the other day, Satya is showing up not in a business suit, who usually doesn't attend these town hall meetings, and their town hall meetings are usually private. This one was made public, and that story was an exclusive from Jez Corden, of course. So please go read that article. I think, you know what? I'll even add it to this show notes if you haven't read it. It's a really good read, and he got a lot of big quotes from what was supposed to be a private event. And like it was explained in the article, Satya Nadella, who is a businessman, usually shows up in a business suit, proper. And he showed up in a hoodie, an Xbox hoodie, and like jeans and sneakers. Now, is that unusual? Because he's a human, so of course he wants to lounge out, but he usually doesn't. And the fact that he showed up and he said what he had to say about thanking Phil and Sarah and the team at Xbox for the prior 25 years, that he's excited for the future of the Xbox, that he committed to hardware, he committed to supporting Xbox. He confirmed something we already know, that they're making a lot of money with Xbox, sometimes even more than Windows itself. So of course it's a big part of what Microsoft does as a whole. But those words that he said, I think needed to be said, and he said it. But here we go, and let's read a little bit from Adam's article. So Adam goes on to say this, Jamie in chat: "We all have seen and heard the Xbox marketing campaign, 'This is an Xbox.' For many fans, myself included, it landed poorly. It made those who invested in Xbox hardware feel like second fiddle, and that is exactly how it came across." Now, that again, folks, I don't think Adam is being facetious. I think he's being truthful. There were a lot of people that felt, and I've seen this term many, many times before, Jamie, like a second-class citizen, especially when they went multi-plat. Adam goes on to say, "The messaging suggested that an Xbox console was no longer essential. Instead, you can pick up your phone, tablet, or laptop and just feel as invested in Xbox as someone who has spent money on a Series X. In practice, that idea is not inherently bad. Expanding to where people can play Xbox games makes sense. The problem was how it was communicated. Rather than presenting those devices as an extension of the console experience, the campaign made some players feel like they might as well sell their console. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not saying that it's a little over dramatic, but he's right. Some people did sell their consoles. I think there were a lot of longtime fans that got really disgusted with the brand and walked away. I think people inherently moved, some, not all, moved to PC because of one reason or another. But you did see a lot of people who were longtime fans of the console kind of feel a type of way of the marketing. The messaging has always been wonky. And I'm hoping that they're going to fix that. And it appears that that is something that is top priority with Asha and Team Xbox, is getting the messaging and marketing back to where it used to be. She said it. She wants to return to the roots of Xbox. And the roots that I could recall that really stand out for me, Jamie, in chat, are those roots. Jamie, you mentioned it, the Xbox 360 era, where they dominated the conversation. They dominated the conversation because they had exclusives, which is something they don't really have anymore because all their games are going to different places. And I get it. So there's some thought and theory about returning to some sort of exclusivity. One of the biggest takeaways from the Xbox 360, and I'm sorry I'm going off the path here, but it makes sense for context, was getting exclusive games from third party. You got to remember, Mass Effect and BioShock were exclusives. And those were massive sized games that wind up becoming massive trilogy franchises. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if that is possible in 2026. We've seen Sony do it to some extent, but maybe that's their way back to a little bit of that edge of 360, is finding a game and locking it down as an exclusive for PC and Xbox and not putting it on Switch, making sure that it doesn't go to PlayStation. That's certainly a path that they could walk. They'd have to spend some bucks, but we'll see. Again, I don't necessarily know if the timed exclusivity is a way back either. That's something they're going to have to figure out. But Adam goes on to say in his article, and let me just read a little bit more from here. Recently, Satya Nadella sat down with new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma for an internal Q&A with the Xbox team. During the session, Jamie, he reassured staff and addressed what many see as the elephant in the room: how Microsoft views gaming. While it may sound like corporate speak, his comments were largely positive. Nadella reiterated that Microsoft will always invest in gaming and described Xbox as core to the company's identity. Details from the Q&A surfaced through an exclusive here at Windows Central. However, prior to this, Asha Sharma announced Project Helix, Xbox's next-generation console designed to play both Xbox and PC games. A new marketing slogan has now entered the picture, and that is what we just said, Jamie. The future of Xbox starts now. And I think that it is really important to this conversation and many more that we're going to have, that it does seem like the new leadership is starting a new path. Yes, they're not going to forget where they came from. Phil Spencer is never going to, quote, be replaced. Sarah Bond is never going to be replaced. They have made a mark in this brand with this community. And yes, there are new people running the show. There are many people that are still there that we know and love. Jason Ronald still helping with next generation development. In fact, he's leading the charge at GDC. Greenberg, who I know personally, Greeny is there, right? Greeny hasn't gone anywhere. He's going to be there with the team. Jeff Rubenstein, who works with comms, still there. There are a lot of people still there. There could be someone making a return, that's Larry Herb. And I think that if I actually did a video on it, bringing that Xbox should bring back Larry Herb. I still second that notion even today. I think that that would be a real brilliant move. But Jamie, I want to get your thoughts on what we discussed on the article. And then on the back end of the conversation, we'll get to what we think and hope is going to be there. Let's specifically talk about Adam Hale's article.
Yeah. So, look, when you have the head of Microsoft come out and say that they're all in on gaming, I think that should settle people down a bit, because I think Microsoft has some cash they can spend on gaming, keep Xbox afloat. And Xbox is a very valuable brand. That's something people like to pretend that isn't a thing. Like Xbox is worth more than Windows, which is weird to think about it. But I got the impression from this that Microsoft are all in on gaming. It's unfortunate that they have to say this again. But from a first impression standpoint, from Asher Shah on stage with Satya Nadella, I just got a really good overall impression at the minute, right? You mentioned the exclusive situation. I mean, look, we've seen a lot of back and forth about this online. I think that Microsoft, they've put themselves in this very, very precarious.
Of course they did. Yes.
Position where, and people have said that, it might be Amy Hood, who's in charge of finance and stuff at Microsoft, that made Microsoft put games elsewhere or force their hand to. If you look at Microsoft, I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit of a tangent, Boom. But if you look at Microsoft's business strategy for the Xbox, right? They have hardware out, they have Game Pass, they have games in the store, DLC, they make money off all that stuff. But if you look at the amount of consoles sold, and if you look at the amount of people buying these games, Arc Raiders, right? I think it sold over 14 million copies. Most of those copies were on PC. But when I saw this list, and if I can find a Boom, I'll send you it. But Xbox and PlayStation were almost identical, right?
Yeah, they were close. It was a very small margin.
Yeah. And why is that? Why is it PlayStation and Xbox had such similar numbers, right? It's because, look, and some people in chat, I know for a fact, will overreact to this, right? Every generation, there's one console in particular that it becomes the casual box, right? I don't mean that in a bad way. The mass mainstream box that people the 360, a lot of people bought that to play Call of Duty, right? It sold 90 million consoles, but yeah, most people had one of those to buy to play Call of Duty. This time, a lot of people own a PlayStation to play Fortnite, to play Apex Legends, right? This has always been the case. It will always be the case with consoles, right? So when I saw those Arc Raiders numbers, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense, right? Arc Raiders is a more premium game. It's also in a genre people are not really familiar with, but overall, the sales numbers are really good, right? So if you look at that and you look at who Microsoft has to appeal to, Microsoft, and I think Microsoft may actually know this. At least I'd hope they do, right? I think Xbox getting that demographic of gamers is gone, right? The people that only buy a PlayStation, the people that only buy a console to play Fortnite, Apex Legends, all that stuff. I think that demographic is out the window, right? They have to sell people on games, right? They have to sell people on the single player games, I was going to say Elden Ring, but Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Call of Duty, Halo, Gears, all that stuff, right? Right now that they have so many studios making these games, multiple studios making multiple games at the same time, I'm thinking maybe Microsoft, because if I can figure this out, surely Microsoft can. I think Microsoft, they'll know that their core demographic that they have to sell games to is the core audience, right? The people that buy more than 2 games a year, the people that buy multiple games a year, right? The people that put the most money into the gaming ecosystem, right? So, if you Microsoft, do you pull away from doing exclusives altogether? I've seen people in chat this week and last week really complain at the fact that we may be talking about this, but I don't think it would necessarily be the worst thing if they did both, right? I think I think Microsoft, they could actually do both, where you have some games that are multi-platform and some games aren't. Like Killer Instinct, right? I've always thought that if there was going to be a Killer Instinct 2, that should be multi-platform.
100%. Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
like these fighting games, especially, they live and die by the user base. So like that would make sense. Call of Duty, obviously, stuff like that. Even like remasters of old games, right? Like Gears of War Ultimate Edition, which is a remaster of a remake. That makes sense. But like your Gears of War E-Days, your Elder Scrolls Sixes, right? Those games would make sense to have as exclusives, right? So you can have. I hate the same, but I'm going to use it anyway. They can have their cake and eat it too, right? Because I think that they have opened the door to multi-platform games. A bunch of games have been in development for cross-platform for a while now. They aren't just going to throw these ports in the bin, right? So like they can do both. And you see Satya Nadella on stage. And by the way, I don't remember any of the time Satya Nadella was wearing an Xbox hoodie.
Yeah, like I said, most of the time, first of all, he doesn't usually come to these things.
Yeah.
And he thought it was important enough to, again, you got to remember, he wasn't there to talk to us, the gamers, or games media. He was there to talk to Xbox staffers and reassure them that the future is now, that they're going to continue to invest. You're going to have a job. I think that's why he showed up.
Yeah. And like that just tells me that, like, I think Xbox as a core might actually have like more of Microsoft's backing than they did before.
Yeah.
Because but beforehand, like Xbox, and like you mentioned how Xbox gamers felt left in the dust, right? I mentioned this last week, how like Xbox for the past several years, what do we hear? Xbox cloud, PC cloud, tablets, mobile cloud, PC.
Yep.
But like the console gamer, these are the guys that like a lot of the people in the chat right now, right? These are the people that put their hard-earned money back into the Xbox ecosystem. They buy multiple games a year, right? They aren't just streaming a game they own on cloud, right? So like I think that like acknowledging your core demographic is the console, and then not talking about cloud all the time, because like look, cloud is it's an ever-growing ecosystem in the market, especially in places like Asia, right? But they aren't making the most money on their platform that way, right? So like you look at these console players, these 30 plus million consoles sold, right? These are the people putting a lot of money back into the ecosystem. So like I got the impression from that maybe Microsoft's actually figured this out, and I think like Phil Spencer did a wonderful job. He saved Xbox, brought back, backwards compatibility, worked with Japanese publishers, all this stuff, right? He did amazing things. But the impression I'm getting right now is that the console is going to be the focus, and that's how it should always be.
I don't disagree. I think the importance, I think having other ways to play Xbox games and the right way to sell that idea, there's nothing wrong with that. I like for instance, I've said this publicly, and I think a lot of people in the chat will agree. The Xbox Play Anywhere logo, I'm personally actively looking for games that have that, because I bought the ROG Xbox Ally X and I use it, if not every night, every other night. And I love that console. Yes, it's a console. It's a handheld. Yes. And I quite enjoy playing games on it. And there are times where I'll play smaller games, for some Chivos. There's games where I simply just I like that device for Vampire Survivors. I know it sounds crazy. I like roguelites on that because it's small. I mean, the thing is all incredibly powerful. I can play anything on there. But if for my usage, I like those type of experiences. Again, if I'm going to play a game like Borderlands 4 or Resident Evil 9 or something, I'm going to play on my big screen TV. It's top of the line TV, rather than strain my 56-year-old eyes on a small screen, right? Like, so it doesn't make any sense. But on the go, sitting on the couch, I like those small experiences. But the fact that they are offering buy one game, play anywhere, that's a really big deal. And it's one that you don't see Sony doing, right? Like Sony, if you have a PlayStation 5 like I do, and I wanted to play The Last of Us on, let's say, for instance, this handheld, I'd have to go buy The Last of Us, but I own it. Sorry, they don't have, buy one game. They don't. Neither does Nintendo, for that matter. So Xbox is doing a lot of really great things. But I think you're onto something, Jamie. I think hearing what Asha came out, she made some really strong comments when she was announced as the CEO. And you know what? Let's get your thoughts on what she had to say, because I think he laid down what the future was, and I think it's the future that you're talking about, being console being the most important.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Asha Shark became, the head of like gaming at Microsoft, like she immediately put out that tweet saying that Xbox, was it bring Xbox back or something like that, like
returning to its roots,
yeah,
more
returning
specifically.
and the roots for Xbox has been in the console, right? It always has been, always will be, always should be, should I say, right? That's the impression I got, because Microsoft, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, they've been too wavy gravy when it comes to like talking about the cloud. Like, go to any interview where over the past 2 years they always talk about portable gaming, right? Portable gaming, cloud, ecosystem, PCs, all this stuff, right? If you're a console gamer, what have you been told over the past 2 years that really benefits you as a console consumer? Yes, you're getting these games, which is nice. But outside of that, Microsoft's talking about a bunch of gobbledygook that doesn't matter to you, and that's been a big problem. But if but I get the impression that they're going to get back on track with talking to the console consumer. And I saw someone in chat mention this before, and it's also something I've said, like the mixed messaging thing has been a big problem with Microsoft in the past. If they just stick to because all the other stuff's extra, right? Your cloud stuff, your PC stuff, your streaming, handheld stuff, that's all extra stuff, right? We shouldn't be talking about all the extra stuff as a focus all the time. The console should always be the focus, right? And look at when Xbox was at its biggest, right? The 360. The Xbox console was their core demographic, the core focus, and it worked bloody great for them, right? And then what happened with the Xbox One? They start doing the TV thing, and thankfully, by the time the console came out, they stopped doing the TV stuff altogether. But like, they know they have to keep it gaming, and they have to keep it to the console, and it's literally that simple, right? And it's like, I know some people want to make it seem like it's really complex and stuff, but it really isn't, right? Gamers are really easy to satisfy. Just give them good games and market their products. That's all you've got to do. And being Xbox at the core, they have to market that, right? I can't remember the last time I saw an Xbox Series X trailer on TV.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's a problem. Game Pass. I can't remember the last time I saw Xbox Game Pass get ads in the UK outside of PC Game Pass, right? PC Game Pass makes a lot of money, but not as much as console Game Pass. So that's the impression I got from that. But I think a lot of people's big takeaway should be like Microsoft clearly getting back on track. At least it looks that way, as a console specific, gaming company, right? All the other stuff's extra, right? The extra stuff shouldn't be talked about all the time. It doesn't need to be. We already know. We know Xbox is doing cloud. We know there's the handheld stuff. We don't need to talk about that all the time. Console being the main focus should always be that, and that's the impression I got.
And focusing on other things was a mistake. So, shout out to the Ruham in the chat. He's here every day. So, of course, we appreciate, his commentary. He says, but the consoles didn't matter, and now it does, just saying. I see you're being a little facetious there, but I appreciate the comment. And yes, now, I don't know, but I can't speak for anybody in the chat. I can speak for me. The console matters to me. And you all know that. I'm a console guy. I'm not a PC guy. I haven't been a PC guy, well, pretty much ever. And I'm probably not going to be a PC guy, a traditional PC guy, right? But console has always mattered to me. It's where I play my games. I want the box underneath the TV. But if you're referring to the bad messaging from Microsoft, well, yes, absolutely. You're 100%. You're spot on, which is why I read your comment aloud, because you're right. They did make a mistake. They devalued the Xbox console experience. And by doing so, they lost the narrative. And ultimately, that is a real problem for Microsoft as a whole. And I've said this before in the last couple of days, and I will reiterate it right now. It is going to be a very tough go at to try and not win back the fans. They're going to win back the fans. This box, this console is going to do that. And that's the other thing. I have to keep saying this. I don't understand where it was ever said that Microsoft and specifically Xbox as a platform are trying to steal away PlayStation gamers. This is why they went multi-plat. Now, I still say the multi-plat thing was a mistake. I've accepted it. I understand it, and it is what it is, but I still never really liked it. They're not trying to win PlayStation fans to come over to Xbox and, ditch their, thousands of dollars worth of digital content, which they don't really have, to be honest with you, because quite frankly, the average gamer on PlayStation is a normie, and 85+%, closer to 90% of the PlayStation 5 owners are casual gamers who buy less than 2 games a year. So I don't think that they have this massive digital library like everyone says that they do. But Xbox, and more specifically Microsoft, knows that their demographic that they're going for is bringing it back to the hardcore, bringing it back to the Xboxers, if you will. But that's not. But who are they trying to ultimately get? They're trying to get the PC audience for this box, not PlayStation gamers. And I keep seeing people make that mistake. You got to understand something, folks. A large percentage of PC gamers today have low to mid-range hardware. They're playing on 2 and 3 series cards. I will welcome in Umbra in a second. Umbra has a monster rig. One, he can afford to do that. And 2, he's an enthusiast. He wants to play the best of the best of the best, sir, right? So he will spend the money, but he's in the percentile that's less than 1% of PC gamers that have these rigs. So who they're going for is the PC audience, and that's why this box is open-ended. It's an open platform just like PC. Now, are you going to be able to change cards? No. But if you're on an old card, let's say, for instance, you're in the chat right now, and you're gaming on a 3 series card, and you've been playing in 1080p, and you're okay with that. To upgrade to a really good, pre-built, you're going to spend $1,500 to what, $3,000? Well, what if this next Xbox is between $8,000 and $1,000, and it's as powerful as a 5090? Now, I don't know that it's going to be as powerful as a 5090, but they did say this is going to be the most powerful console ever released, right? That's the tagline. I'm using their words. And if you are a PC gamer that loves Steam because of Steam and the fact that you can buy games there at a discount, and you go to the Steam sale and you buy 17,000 games you're not going to play, but you bought them anyway, you can play them on this box, on your TV. So I think the audience that they're trying to move towards is bringing in the PC audience, not the PlayStation audience. And that's why these games, unfortunately, even though they may do some sort of timed exclusivity, are going to go to PlayStation, because they're going to be getting money from everybody. They're going to be getting money from PlayStation gamers that are going to buy Halo, Gears, Forza, Fable, Call of Duty. And they're going to get the PC gamers who can't afford a $3,000 rig. But the Project Helix is $800 to $1,000, and I'm getting power of a 5090, and I can play all my Steam games. What about my Epic games? Oh, they're there too? Holy shit, this is crazy. And that's who they're going for. And I hope that answers a lot of questions. But Infinite Number, what's up, dude? How's everything, man? How you feeling?
Hey, good morning, Boom. Good morning, Jamie. Good morning, chat. I'm feeling all right. I had issues with this monitor, man. I don't know what happened, but my DisplayPort card, or not card, my DisplayPort cord for whatever reason stopped functioning, and I had to figure that out.
See, this is PC for you. See, I don't like PCs, folks. There it is.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but I had to switch it out and put the old HDMI in there, and now it's working. So I don't know what happened. Maybe it shorted out. I have a new monitor. I got this Asus monitor. It's really nice. But yeah, I guess that's what it was, and I got to figure it out and sort it out, and I'm here now. Yes, and I'm woke, chat.
Well, you know what? We're happy to have you here, and what we were talking about was what's happening tomorrow at GDC. So I want to get your thoughts. Now, again, we have an article in front of us, Umbra, that was written by Adam Hales of WindowsCentral.com, and they go into the new signage that's been found everywhere, well, here, there, and everywhere at GDC, and basically it highlights build what's next, and the future of Xbox starts now. I want to get your thoughts on what that actually means to you, because obviously they're showing something tomorrow. Interestingly enough, John Clark from Day One, formerly known as Xbox Era, took a picture of their booth that happens to be closed off to people. I guess the regular attendees, and it's showing their original Xbox that was silver, like an actual Xbox, to their current hardware. It's closed off. Now, my original thought and theory is a little bit out there, to be honest with you. And Jamie was like, yeah, I don't think so, Boom. But I'm going to say it anyway again. If you wanted to really drive the point home of, well, Xbox, the future of Xbox starts now. Well, it starts now because they're going to be talking about the future of Xbox tomorrow, led by the best beard in the business, Jason Ronald. But interestingly enough, because I'm a breadcrumb kind of a guy and I don't believe in coincidences, even though sometimes they make sense to say that, last Thursday, Asha dropped a bomb on the industry by naming Project Helix, which in its namesake is a DNA that's combined. Combined of what? Well, combined of PC and Xbox. And that's what they're going to be potentially showing off. I have a thought and theory that they could actually show the box tomorrow, even though it might be a year and some change away. Well, they did the same thing with the Series X, if you remember. It was a year away when they announced it. And they shocked the world. And if you really want that shock and awe kind of, presentation, get people to really talk about your box, that is where you do it, because the world's eyes are going to be on what the future of Xbox is, and it'd be really cool to see what it looks like as well. Let's get your thoughts on the new tagline of the future of Xbox starts now.
Yeah. So wait, are we speaking on the GDC?
Yes.
Discussion? Okay. So my thinking of what they'll show you, saying basically, because,
well, I mean, just what they'll show, but also what are you expecting?
What am I expecting? Okay,
at tomorrow's GDC event.
Well, they have a lot of the Xbox people coming there. I saw Paris out there. I saw Khalif, and apparently he can't cook, according to Paris. I've seen Lord Cognito out there. I've seen all the good brothers out there, and so they very clearly made sure to have a representation of people from the community to come through. So I would expect that, with this being the Magnus Silicon here, they're going to actually have a bigger, deeper dive into that. And we're actually, I think it's a developer first, from what I last read, about them actually showcasing this chip there. So I expect them to have that breakdown, maybe some representative from AMD to be there. Yes, sir. I had to get my notes. I had to know what we were on, but I know what subject we were on. So I would expect AMD to possibly be there too, and they might do a deeper dive there on that. That would be my expectations. Also, Jason Reynolds. I think Jason Reynolds made a tweet about it as well, about being there. So I would expect him to possibly break down. And if you got him and you have maybe AMD representatives, I think it's a fair assumption that they'll probably show off something, right? Let me think. I guess they'll have to break down the integration of how, the storefronts will work, right? So, I mean, we all understand it as far as as far no, sir, you were right though. But we have to understand it as far as the storefronts and everything. We get an understanding of, yeah, we'll have Steam integration, we'll have Epic, we'll have all these things. How will that really work though? I'm wondering, and if they're going to break that down further into showing how or showcasing how the next Xbox will handle that. I'm going to guess that it's going to be very close to the Xbox Rock Ally and whatever in that sense, that you will have or at least it'll showcase that you have like a basic UI that we have, like an Xbox UI, much like the Xbox Rock Ally, and that you can go to the main home of a PC hub, right? So I'm hoping that they actually do that, because to me, as I've been saying for a while, this is essentially a fusion, right, of the two. An Xbox fusion, if you will, chat. I will be honest though, just as an aside, I actually like the name Helix a lot. I actually do wish they would go with that, but we know how the project names go with Xbox. The project name sounds good. The actual name ends up being like,
Yeah,
So,
you know something though? This is a little different. If I may interject a second, first of all, I love your original Xbox Fusion name, which I think is a great name. A lot of people don't like it. I happen to really like it. But like you just said, why I really appreciate the Xbox Helix is for what the namesake itself stands for. It is a merging of DNA. It is at its core exactly what this device is going to be. It is going to be a console, it is going to be a PC, and it's going to be a merge of the two. It's going to give you all of the freedoms of storefronts and things that you can do with it from a PC aspect, but it's going to give you the simplicity of console plug and play. Plug it in, go, and your experience, the full screen experience, which they're perfecting right now, will look and act just like a console UI, but it will give you instant access to all of your games from everywhere, which again, it's a blend. So maybe they do stick with it, Umbra.
maybe. Microsoft has invested heavily into AI, right? I don't know if AI is the thing nowadays though, because it seems like it's backfiring on some people. So they put such an investment into that, which I believe will possibly lead to more layoffs and things of that nature, unfortunately. But they have put such a focus on that. I would wonder if there will be some type of, speaking of the spec situation, I wonder, because they have the AI thing, and I'm keep wondering, how are they going to integrate this AI thing? What does that mean for us in terms of gaming, right? Like, how does that work? Am I going to tell the AI, hey, AI, play as Dante for me and get an S rank on this mission? I don't know. How does that work? Right. And I will, hey, if it could, I'd be like, I'm going to cheat with it too. I'm like, hey, defeat this boss Elden Ring. But I'm going to guess it's going to be something more on the other side of that, such as maybe something like the upscaler, right? Because you got DLSS. I'm getting used to that more on the PC side of things. Obviously, AMD, we have the FSR rather, but that Xbox has used. Maybe they'll have their own AI upscaler or something like that at this point that actually uses AI to have their own specific one that helps with visuals and not with just visuals, but with everything else. I'm wondering too. Yeah, I guess that's my biggest thing. It's like, how would that work, and also how would they get more developers on board? I guess it wouldn't really matter. I guess because it's going to be a very open platform. So will it necessarily matter? They're building for the x86 architecture. I don't know how much that matters anymore going forward with this. To me, it's a lot of things left open that I don't really understand. And it's like, okay, well, if they have it on this platform, they got the Steam integration, they got the Epic Store integration, does that even matter anymore, right? Also, too, how does that work on? Well, maybe this is not a GDC question. I'm kind of wondering, how does that work for storefronts that Microsoft doesn't necessarily profit from? How does that work for Microsoft? So I'm trying to piece that all together. I I guess then the last thing, and I don't really expect them to really do this, but I know one of the key things that many of us think about are the pricing, right?
Yeah,
And
Jamie actually made mention of it. He thinks that it's too far out to
determine.
talk price.
Yeah, and I think so. But I would say too that if we're talking about expectations and what we assume may be likely, this is gonna be the most powerful console, if you will, or hybrid,
Yes.
whatever you want to call it, of all time.
Yes.
For that to happen, that means you're gonna have to have a lot of high specs, right? And everybody's reporting that this is the case, that it's gonna be more powerful than the PS6. Although you never know, Sony, you know how they are, and they're gonna have time to. Well, I'm saying all of this, but it's not like they're gonna change specs at the last second. So never mind with that. But the thing is that I've been saying this for a while, even before we heard more of this, is that I expect next gen to be pretty pricey, right? At the very least, to the $800 to $1,000
I
range.
said, you know, it's funny. I just looked up and I knew it, but I wanted to confirm it. When the PlayStation 5 Pro released, it released at $700 to start. Now it's they added $50 to it. So now if you want to buy it new, it's 750, 800 after tax. If the PlayStation 5 Pro is at nearly $800 after tax, you would imagine that this next box is going to probably be minimum $800, maybe even $1,000.
Gotta be. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the key reasons why many of us thought it initially is because the PS5 Pro, which is only 3% more powerful than the standard PS5, that thing is 750 plus tax and is $800 roughly, right? Well, next gen can't be cheaper than that. It doesn't make sense. Sony has already said they're not going to subsidize. Microsoft is not. They said they're not going to subsidize. Something's got to give, and that's going to end up being us as the consumer giving. We're going to be the givers. So I'm going to say 1,000 to 1,200 is what I'm expecting. I don't know if they'll announce something like that price wise this early. That's maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I would like it for them to do it. But then again, I am also the type where you heard me where I said they need to have some type of payment plan with noticing this idea now. Because again, I look at not just the pricing of the console. We already know like coming in at a $500 to $600 target price has always been the norm for consoles, right? $500 being the optimal. And at least once we started getting to like the 8th gen and all that, you cannot just be like, oh, here this new next gen console, the Xbox Helix is 1,500. People will be like, I can't afford that. I mean, look at the situation we're in economically right now. It's tough. It's a tough sale. So how do you get around that?
I have an idea. I think it's a quick fix, and I think this is what they've already talked about, and we'll potentially know more. Partners, right? OEM devices, because if Microsoft comes out with the big bad box, right? Say that three times quick, right? They come out with their most powerful hardware ever, just like PC and PC laptops. If you can't afford to get a Surface Pro, whatever, because it's $2,000.
Well, there's an Xbox for you.
Yeah, can you go to Lenovo? Can you go to Dell? Can you get an Alienware that has similar specs, just not as powerful? That might be $300 or $500 cheaper. I'm just saying that I think the whole point of them opening, again, this is an open-ended console. They're doing something never before seen before, and I think what we saw with Asus with the handhelds is something that's going to come to fruition with the actual consoles, because other manufacturers are going to be able to sell those consoles potentially cheaper, right? And maybe even some higher end ones. You know, you go to like an Alienware and they have, the ability to pick your specs. What Xbox do you want? Well, I want a 2 terabyte drive and I want this, and this. Okay, that's $2,500. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm saying that the answer to your question is, if you can't afford the potentially $1,000 Xbox, maybe they give players the choice like PC. This is the merge. This is why it's a fusion. This is why it's the Helix. Gives you the ability to buy an Xbox, but from another manufacturer like Lenovo, right? Like Asus, like Dell or Alienware. Hope that makes sense.
So I hear you on that, but this is my thinking. For that to work, they're going to have specifications, right? The OEMs. They're not.
They're going to have baseline specifications. There's no doubt about it.
So because of that, they're not going to be cheap either. That's the unfortunate part. Especially Asus. Asus is pricey, and no matter what form this, I've rarely seen an underpriced Asus device unless like the handhelds have gone on sale, like the original like X1s or something like that. But maybe you might find like at I don't know, some type of refurbished unit or something, or maybe they might have a specific sale. But typically, Asus has pricey, premium priced devices and services, or not services, but devices. I would think that even OEMs are going to carry on with it. I don't know if they'll have lower spec options. That will be interesting to see. To your point, I don't know if they will, but if it's going to be spec'd to have the standard of what the next Xbox will have, it's still going to be pricey. You know what I mean?
This is some of the questions they're going to have to ask, and that we're certainly a lot of gamers are going to want the answers to, and maybe that's something they get into a GDC this year. Maybe it's something they get into GDC next year when we know what the box looks like. You got to remember, it's not coming out this year; it's coming out next year, so they have time.
That's why
to have all of this figured out.
That's why I say they need to get on ahead of that now, because much to everybody in the chat, everyone gets the picture. Everyone knows now. Like, we know this is not just the whole brand of gaming is for everyone. Well, gaming is for everyone that can afford it now, right? It is much more a luxury nowadays than anything else. And the chat is right. It's more of a premium. This is going to be a very premium console. You can expect that it's going to cost like something like that. And I think about that when we think about it, we don't have any sort of expectation like that about other premium products. And I know the phone is a bad one to use because we use the phone for everything, right? The phone is indispensable for us. But these phones now, these flagships cost well over, $1,200, $1,500, depending on what you get now.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to expect the same for this one, it being a PC hybrid, from all things that we're hearing, especially in Jez's, I believe, his article too. Like I said, it's going to have it be this fusion where you have this Xbox UI, but you can use it as a PC as well.
Yeah, you can be able to do everything you can do on a PC. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Now, I don't know what the specs will break down, and hopefully they can go into this in GDC, maybe what the specs could mean in terms of comparison to GPUs that we can compare it to, because I think that's an easier indicator for me especially, because I'm still learning when it comes to this side of things. But if they tell me, hey, the next Xbox is the equivalent of I don't know. I'm going to jump out the box here. I don't think it will be.
What if it's as powerful as a 5090?
That's what I was about to go with, something like that. I don't think it will be. So don't anyone, this idiot thinks it's going to be this. I don't know that. I'm just saying, if they actually had something to show, like it's going to be an RTX 50 series, yeah, I'm going to be like, yeah, that's well worth it to me, right? That's well worth. Right now I have a 4080 Super. I just looked at the specifications for what is one of my most anticipated games of the year, in Crimson Desert. You know what the specs you need for that is for PC, for Ultra? You need a 5070.
Yeah, I just saw this. They just posted it. It's crazy what you need.
Yeah. So, and now, to be fair, it's really cool because for our ROG Ally, Xbox Ally folks, they have a performance option for the ROG Xbox Ally X that you can get 60 frames still, upscale from 720 to 1080p. That's pretty good when you look at it that way. But that aside, I'm just saying, even with me having this 4080 Super, the Ultra I can't even touch.
Yeah,
my PC will burn up on me or something. It'll probably just catch fire or something, right? I mean, we already knew the game was a looker, but I'm saying all this to say, if the next Xbox can be a very high end comparable GPU, not only should you expect it to be pricey, it's obvious that it should be pricey. It's this these we got RAM shortages, we got all these other things that's going to go into this that's going to raise the pricing, right? We have to keep that in mind. But that's why I say it would be in Microsoft's best interest if they really care about this. That is, now I've got my doubts. I feel like maybe they're sunsetting. I don't know after this. But if they want to really bring people into this next gen, give people something in a way to move into next gen. And what I mean by that is give people some type of payment plan in advance. If you make it where somebody can pay off this thing monthly or weekly or however they choose to do so, and pay it off, even if it's a premium, even if you have to charge an interest rate on it, then you will have many more customers, I believe, moving into that to the what would be the 10th gen, right?
Yeah.
I think that will be they've already dabbled in that. We already know it's not like it's some radical thing. Like, well, they why would they do that? They've done it already in a different way, right? This would just be the next step of that. I think that's the only solution. And I don't expect, I'm saying all this is my wishy-washy thought process, but I don't expect them to go into this now. Pricing is not going to happen until we see all the good stuff.
No, it's funny. I saw
that.
Paris actually make a mention of that. He goes, "There's not going to be any pricing here," and I don't think there's going to be. I don't think there's going to be any layaway plans brought. This is something that's going to happen closer to its release. Maybe the start of next year. You'll get maybe at the next GDC. You'll get how you can pay for this thing, where it's available, if there's going to be like the all access plan brought back for this thing, because that's I see what you're saying. But I do want to, pass the mic over to Jamie, because we're going to get out of here in a few minutes. We'll catch up on super chats, but I do want to get Jamie's final thoughts on what you expect over there, Jamie. But I think, Umber, you're onto something. I look, the next generation consoles, meaning PlayStation is not going to come in anything under the $750 it costs right now for a PlayStation 5 Pro, which, by the way, is only 3% more powerful by the numbers of a Series X. Now, yes, the Series X, $800 for the 2 terabyte Galaxy version, which is ridiculous. So if the Galaxy is $800 and the Pro is $750, you can expect both consoles, whatever the PlayStation 6 looks like, whenever the PlayStation 6 releases, potentially 29 or even 30, it's going to be as expensive. But good stuff all around. Jamie, let's get your thoughts on what you expect or what you're hoping to see tomorrow at GDC with Xbox.
I'll keep this brief. Look, I think it's just a game development conference, so like I'm not expecting like prices or hardware or anything like the realistic. We're gonna hear some like cool development stuff, right? Hear about some optimization stuff, and in an age where we need optimization,
I
in
agree.
A lot of games. Yeah. My God, the amount of times I hear people complain about like game stuttering, like just please optimization, right? One of the things I want to talk about, I don't know if they'll mention this, and this has been my big like sticking point for like the past year, and I'm glad Umber mentioned it, because I feel like I've been taking crazy pills. I've been the only person I feel like that's been like talking about this for like the past year. The multiple storefront thing doesn't make sense to me, and I've talked about this, and nobody can really give me a solid answer. As a business, it doesn't technically make sense for Microsoft to have multiple storefronts on their console. Like let's say you buy a Project Helix or whatever it's called, but I'm gonna go with Xbox 6. I think they should call it Xbox 6. I've been beating this drum for years. It should be Xbox 6. Just end the weird naming conventions altogether. But let's say you buy an Xbox 6 and Assassin's Creed 2 remake is a thing. Well, you could buy it on the Xbox store for, let's say, $70, or you could buy it on Steam for $60. How does that make business sense to Microsoft? That's the thing that I just can't figure out, right? Like, if you have access to multiple storefronts, then you're technically giving Microsoft less money. And the other thing is incentivization from developers. If you have an Xbox 6 and it can play PC games, what's to stop, let's say, Square Enix from coming out with the Final Fantasy VIII remake, and it comes to Steam, but they don't port it to Xbox. So the only way you can play it on Xbox is through Steam. But that means you won't have an optimized version for Xbox. It won't have achievements, and that would be a bad situation. Those are the 2 points I've been trying to bring up for this past year, and nobody can give me an answer. If they could answer that over this next week, I'll be a happy chappy.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, I understand your point of view, wanting to know the money thing. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. For me, at the brass tacks of it, I don't care how they make money. What I care about is that if I am someone who wanted a game on Steam that wasn't available on console, like a side-scrolling beat 'em up brawler that they have a lot of, right? You get a lot of small developers that are, teams of 5, and they made it in their garage, and it's like Final Fight, except it's not. And it's a new, only available on Steam because they can't afford to port it to Xbox, PlayStation, or Switch. I would be able to go buy this game from Steam, and the money aspect of it, maybe if you're buying the game on Steam through the box, they're getting some sort of a kickback. This is something that they've worked out. I don't think that this would be a thing if they didn't have a way to make money. They're a business. They're not going to lose money on the deal. I mean, you ask really valid questions, but from the money aspect of it, I don't have an answer. And you're right, Jamie. Maybe this is something that does get answered. Maybe they need someone like you to ask it, because it's not a question that I would have asked. I would be like, hey, are you saying I can buy this one box and get all my games from everywhere in one place? Yeah, sign me up. Take my money.
Like, don't get me wrong, right? From a consumer standpoint, it's bloody great, right? If you game on PC as well as console, right, you're gonna have the ability to play your PC games on your console as well. That's cool. But from a standpoint of, hey, you could buy this game cheaper on a different store, and it won't be optimized for your console, and it won't have achievements, and like the whole thought of would it make sense if let's say like Microsoft would get a kickback from Steam? Yeah, but I can't see Steam doing that, right? Steam aren't going to come out and say, hey, by the way, you can put our store on your box, and we are willing to give you some a percentage of each game, right? I can't see that happening. Like Valve just isn't going to do that, right? I think that the only way I could see this working is that if you have access to your PC games, but you don't have access to the direct storefront. So you can't buy games directly on your console on these other stores, but you can play the games that you own in those stores. If that
makes a lot of sense for sure.
That's the only way that would make sense. But when it comes to the porting thing, like, yeah, some indie games can't afford to port their games to Xbox, just all platforms at once. That would be cool that you could play these games on your Xbox because it has the Steam stuff. However, you're still going to have companies that question, why should we spend tens of millions of dollars making an Xbox version of this game when we could just put out the game on Steam and let people download an unoptimized version on their box, right? It's a slippery slope. I'm sure Microsoft can overcome these, but it's like two of the big things I've been trying to ask for the past year. Like, these things need to be answered. And also, I saw the name thing in chat. The reason I keep bringing up Xbox 6 for the name, and people keep saying, wouldn't it be Xbox 5? That's the point. I keep calling it Xbox 6 because the weird naming conventions for the past 20 years have existed because they called it the Xbox 360 because they couldn't call it the Xbox 2 because that would be 1 less than 3, which was the PS3. And yes, people are that dumb that they would think one number lower means weaker, right? Normies exist. They are dumb, right? So, like, when I say Xbox 6, it would need to be on par with PlayStation. That's literally it. But that's just my take anyway.
Are you telling me that the Xbox 360 is
you know what? Unfortunately,
and some levels higher?
Yeah,
and the PS3.
I'm sure that conversation came out of somebody's mouth.
You're not wrong.
Which is scary. But
I will say this though, to do what Jamie said, and I agree with a lot of what he said here, is that I don't know how the storefront situation will work. I still would imagine they would allow you to buy your stuff still because it's going to have the PC option that you can use. So I would imagine
again, it makes sense. It makes sense that they, you can play all your PC games. Maybe you don't buy the games on this console.
I think you're going to be able to do it still. I think you're going to be able to buy it there as well. But I think what they'll have to do is, to get around that, Jamie, is they'll have to say, hey, this is a disclaimer. This is not our storefront. If you get a game and you buy it from there, you can use it on our platform here and play it, no problem, on this device. However, we are not responsible for the quality therein, or the lack of quality in that case, or any technical
or
issue,
lack of optimization
that it gives you if you buy it from their storefront. And I think that's more than reasonable. No one can be like, well, you allow me to play it on here though, or unless you're like an idiot. But that's the only other way I can see it, is if, hey, you get it from us, it'll be optimized. If you get it from another storefront, and you can't expect us to have that expectation of guaranteeing you anything. That's buy at your own risk, or buy at your own I said it right, buy at your own risk.
Buy at your own risk. Yeah. Listen, I think a lot of what you guys are asking are great questions. Hopefully a lot of those answers come to way of tomorrow's event. We'll be covering the event that evening on Primetime Gaming, what was shown, what was not shown, what questions were answered, what questions were asked. And of course, I have a feeling that we're going to see it's going to be a big deal. How big of a deal? My speculation is that they're going to show something, but that is just me wishfully hoping that they show something. But ladies and gentlemen, let me catch up on Super Chats and we'll get everyone on out of here. We have Gamer by Choice dropping a very generous $5 Super Chat. He goes on to say, if Xbox bought all the top games and made them Xbox exclusives, would people move to Xbox or just move to other games on their platforms of choice? I mean, a lot of people bought an Xbox 360 because of Mass Effect and BioShock and several others. So I don't know if they return to that ideology. Again, this is why they're hiring some big guns for their marketing and messaging, because what they had in place before didn't work and did a really piss poor job of both messaging and marketing. And now they have a new team that Asha is building, and on that team are going to be new people with new ideas that can better sell the brand. And that's why the whole the new Xbox starts here. Well, it's going to start with new management. We already know that's in place. I've said this before and I'll say it again. She's hit the ground running, and she's done a really, really good job in her first couple of weeks. And she's going to be at her first GDC, where she's there today, but tomorrow is the event for Xbox. We'll learn more tomorrow. Julia in the chat, who's been a channel member for 54 months. So thank you so much for the insane support. Mrs. Boom and I do greatly appreciate it. JMac800, who's been a channel member for 52 months. So JMac, thank you so much for that, bro. He says Xbox is smart enough to understand that allowing other stores on your platform empowers exclusivity. Hashtag Graybeards in the building. We also have Mac22 in the chat, drops a very generous $2 super chat. It says, Umbra, that's never going to happen. Sorry, dude. And I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but that might mean
I think he was talking about the layaway idea.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a layaway situation, but they could bring back the all access program.
Yeah, that's what I want them to do. Bring back,
and they should. If they want to sell consoles, and someone can't afford. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. If you buy a controller from the Microsoft store, there are different pay options. You can pay for it, right out of your bank account. You can pay for it on your credit card, or you can do PayPal, which you can do upwards of 12 payments. You can do Affirm is another one. You do a pay in 4. There are different avenues to pay for these things these days because they want to sell, but people can't afford to pay for it in full. And that's an option. Options are good. Let's just say that. So thank you so much for that. Mac drops an additional very generous $5 super chat. It says we are all going to have to get out of the mind, get our minds wrapped around the fact that they are going to be paying a premium price for this premium console. Yeah, I just think that if you are going to move on to the next generation, and there are 40 million plus people that bought Series X consoles, not saying everyone's going to upgrade, but a good portion of them will, because they're going to want power. They will buy these consoles knowing that they are expensive. And I don't think this saves Sony from an expensive PS6 whenever that comes out. I think Nintendo is their next console. I mean, again, I don't expect it for at least another 10 years. The Switch 2 is going to be around as long as the Switch 1, which I think was 8 years before they released the Switch 2. It probably will be $600. But yeah, again, only time is going to tell. We have Son of Vision 2 dropping a very generous $5 super chat. So Son of Vision says Xbox should price the Series X and S to $400 and $300 this summer and focus on marketing Game Pass in 2027. Call it the Xbox 720 and fade out the 20. That's an interesting theory. I mean, they're going to have to eventually lower the price. I don't know if that what the RAM situation will allow them to do. But it's this industry is crazy right now. And the pricing is still crazy. I don't know when the pricing is going to get better, but thank you so much for the generosity. And lastly, LeBurn98 drops a very generous $10 super chat. And he says, don't underestimate the power of the default. The Xbox store will be default. Most people who want to play Fortnite, Call of Duty, etc. on Helix will do so through it. Microtransactions will be purchased through it as well. Yeah, I just think that, I don't know if the goal is to have you buy this box and buy all your games from Steam. I don't know. I think Jamie asked a really good question. I never thought of it because I'm thinking of it as a consumer. I'm going to buy my games from Xbox. I don't buy a lot of Steam games. Will I buy Steam games only available on Steam? That I will buy. Will I play any of the near 100 games I have that I got for free on Epic Game Store? Yes, I will play those. Or maybe I won't play them. I don't know. But that's going to do it for us here. Hopefully you enjoyed the show enough to hit the like button. Jamie Moran, let's sell the brand, brother. You got a show happening today with Logan Meyer called the All Thing Xbox Podcast. And I'm sure that you have upwards of at least a dozen topics. Let's get into where they can watch that live this evening. And more importantly, subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yeah, thanks, Boom. It's always a pleasure. So yeah, my YouTube channel is The Elusive Gamer. I exclusively cover Xbox and hopefully cover Mass Effect more soon. All Things Xbox Podcast is on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Basically, as the show was live, turns out Fallout 3 Remastered leaked again.
Yes, it did. I know that. Yep.
Worst kept secret in the industry. So we're going to be talking about that, Final Fantasy, Splinter Cell, shocker to no one, bunch of Assassin's Creed stuff, and of course, Xbox Project Helix. And that's All Things Xbox Podcast at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel. I also do Twitter, which is Jamie Moran UK. That's exclusively gaming and jokes.
Nice, brother. Well, so we're looking forward to hearing about the Fallout leak once again, because I'm sure that you have some information on it. And yeah, really, really, really bad secret. But Umbra, let's sell the brand of the fix. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays evenings with yourself, Crusader, and Daniel J. McGee. And I would imagine you're going to be covering the results of tomorrow's event at GDC 2026. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people subscribe to your YouTube channel and follow you on socials?
Indeed. You all can find me Infinite Umbra or Umbra Infinite on social media. Either way, you'll find me. Also, as Boom pointed out, 8 o'clock on Thursdays typically. We likely will be going live, barring some real life takeaways. Also, I want to highlight Mav in the chat said, according to the old layaway thing, he was like, you can own an Xbox for pennies on a day or whatever, right? And they should use that type of slogan, make it seem affordable to people, like, oh, you can do this too. Obviously, Judah made a great point earlier where he pointed out a high yield savings account will be the smart way to go. Yeah, if you all start saving now, you might not have such an issue later, right? But I know that, again, in this economy, people don't have the luxury of just saving money. Some of us don't have that. Some of us don't have anything to put aside. You know what I mean? But then again, I guess people would ask you, then why are you prioritizing gaming, right? So I don't know. Anyway, I don't have the answers. I'm giving more questions. But yeah, you all can find me on, like I said, where you can find me. Come by and hopefully subscribe to the channel. We had a really good show last week as well. We had Kay Asante come by and he broke down a lot of the talk with the Project Helix and how the virtual machines would work and possibly and things. He gave a very high-end technical explanation that my mind cannot comprehend properly. So you all should come by and check that out. Thank you to everybody who does support us, but I would love for more of you all in the chat who claim to love me show up and love me more by subscribing.
Yes.
And to do so, here is the link.
There you go.
Yes, subscribe.
Well, thank you so much for being here, brother. Super appreciate it, gentlemen. You knocked it out of the park as it's expected. And of course, chat, great to have you here. Over 500 people watching live. I know that people were asking about where the snipers were. I sniped a couple of people that will not be back, that were just here to troll. And I will say them, if they're listening, why listen to something that you hate? You have to sit down on the couch with somebody and work that shit out, because that to me is weird. That's some weird energy right there. If you don't like Xbox, why would you listen to an Xbox podcast? That's just weird. So
I've never understood that. I've never understood
it's that weird energy, as the kids like to say. I don't know.
Yeah. Let me go listen to this person I hate. What?
Uh,
I hate Xbox and I hate that BoomStick guy because he has a mohawk at 56. He's stupid. Okay, I will listen to him. I don't get it, ladies and gentlemen. But what I do get is a big thank you to all of the generosity that has come in today. Mrs. Boom and I do greatly appreciate it. A big thank you to the well over 500 people watching live. We do appreciate the likes, the shares, the subs. And of course, we're going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day will be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. It's a Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast.